about them Cowboys. It's the Cowboys Squad, sponsored by Game Time. Everything Dallas Cowboys every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from America's team, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Cowboys Squad Show, starting now.
Well, good evening. Cowboys mandatory minicamp is now in the books. It is over, but the Locked On Cowboys Squad Show is not. It rolls on, and we are glad to be with you on this Monday night. We start with a welcome to the co-host of the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast show. That would be Landon McCool. Good evening, Landon. Looking good.
Thanks, sir.
And we, of course, say a big welcome to my co-host on the in-season Cowboys postcast, and of course with us here every episode, the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. Coach, Glenn, happy Father's Day belated to you both. Hope you were able to enjoy.
I love it. Love Father's Day. It's the one day where I definitely can expect breakfast in bed and be disappointed by whatever kind of half-created mess I get from my kids. So
exactly,
I love handmade. I love handmade cards and the thought that counts types of gifts that usually accompany Father's Day.
Nothing better than them coming in and saying "Dad." That's
right.
Good. That's a good term.
Yep, that's a good term and a good day right there for sure. All right, well. Coming up on our show today, we are going to have the very latest with the Cowboys. As I said, minicamp is over. It wrapped up last week, and now the countdown is on to training camp in late July, and we know that's going to be here before we know it. It's going to be here in a blink of an eye. So, Landon, this is where I get to do the cross-promote of your daily Locked On Cowboys podcast. You and Marcus, again, Marcus Mosier, all over everything. Let's just start with maybe some of your big takeaways. And at some point before we wrap things up, I know one of the episodes, and again, this is a shameless plug to get you to go listen on your own. But one of your episodes, you had 3 undrafted hidden gems. But what were some of the big takeaways for you and Marcus from last week's minicamp?
Yeah, I mean, kind of, and we talked about on this show, like what exactly can you get from these minicamp reports and OTA reports, and what's just fodder and what's sort of important to take away. And I think, early on, it's about, seeing these guys and seeing, how they look physically and how they're moving around a little bit, even though this isn't in full pads, just to kind of get a sense of what they're doing and what they're doing well and how the Cowboys are trying to use them. This is, as Coach is going to say, tell us too, like this is an install period. This is a teaching period. So competition is kind of, in a lot of ways, secondary. That'll come in training camp once everybody's got the whole playbook installed, and now it's time to go out and play football. But I think right now it's kind of just getting an eye on how they're using some of these guys in some of these places where we don't have solid answers. Like for me, it's like, who's playing nickel today, and what kind of rotations are we seeing out there? Not that we're going to get answers necessarily yet, but we'll at least get an idea of what they're trying, what they're throwing out there, and that kind of at least gives us an idea of how they view some of these players, like some of the Elijah Clark, like you were mentioning, undrafted free agents that are there's a tease, I guess, for some of the gems, right? How are they using some of these guys that I think Israel Mukuamu is another guy, right, where they re-signed him and he's played safety, that he's played corner. And it seems like the OTAs and the mini camps, they've used him both inside and outside. What's the plan there? They clearly like him enough to re-sign him, but they also clearly are still trying to figure out exactly how to use him best. So, those are the kind of reports that I think I pay attention to the most, just to kind of nail down those like kind of guys that you're just not exactly sure what the plan is for the team, to see if you can kind of suss out what's going on.
Yeah, this is the time of year where guys try to push, and I'm talking about coaches, scouts, they try to push away from it a little bit. The scouts have, I'm sure, gotten their bonuses for the year. Guys have been told if they're coming back or not. Most of those guys work under 1-year deals. So you see all of that being done. You see the coaches kind of trying to finalize what they want to do, training camp schedules, installations, what are we putting in, when we're putting it in, how that's going to come along. And then what guys really try to do this time of year is push away from it a little bit. You got to kind of, this is where you have to reset yourself when you know the grind is coming up. And I'm saying it's a grind. It is a coaching and being in the NFL is a very demanding, very grind down scenario. So you have to get away from it here. And I say that knowing that you have a group of players who they got to be dialing in. They got to be getting themselves in the best shape that they can get in, knowing in about 6 weeks here, you got to be at training camp and you got to have yourself ready to go. Then you have the players who are coming through the injury issues and they have to get themselves in position, knowing they don't want to get on the PUP list. They don't want to get in certain and I'm saying where you get corralled and knowing, okay, if you go on the PUP, you can't come back off of it for a certain time frame. So guys are kind of driving to that and trying to get themselves in that position. So is it a downtime? It's a downtime. It is the time to push back away from it. Is it a time for us to stop talking about it? Hell no. I'm trying to cranked up and figure out the direction that everybody's going here.
Coach, did you happen to hear anything or did anything just from what you absorbed stand out from mini camp first here under Brian Schottenheimer? Nothing.
I mean, I think we've talked about all of the, him wanting to change the culture. And I think everybody that's ever been in that position wants to be able to put their fingerprint on what's going on. And so, we've heard all about the basketball goal and the ping pong and, all that. And I think some of that creating competition is what he's wanting to do. And obviously maybe they've done some of that. As far as anything standing out from a personnel standpoint, I mean, other than the fact that they made a trade for a really good wide receiver, my focus was on, okay, how are guys physically, and how's Diggs, how is Ravel, how's Butler, how is Overshown, how are those guys who are coming off those injuries, how is their progress? And we don't know. I mean, they let very little of that out, but you're trying to say, hey, how do guys look running around? And that's the first thing that guys are going to be asking as soon as you get out to Oxnard, is they're going to want an update on how those guys are. So, I mean, all of it sounds good right now. And I mean, everybody, hell, Chuba Hubbard, the running back for Carolina Panthers, said their goal is to win the Super Bowl. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Christian Kirk came out and said, hey, our quarterback, CJ Stroud, can lead us as far as we want to go. And all that sounds great. But, I'm one of those guys that's from the school of, you talk with your helmet and your shoulder pads. That's kind of what does the talking from my standpoint.
Yeah, well said. I was thinking about it, Landon. Do you think that is it just kind of a sign of the times, or is it more of just, hey, it's OTAs and mini camp, so we're not gonna, from a reporting standpoint, we're not gonna go after it too hard. We're gonna wait until training camp, because it seems like there was a lot of storylines out there, and they were kind of hit on, but not, I don't know, not what I would expect in this day and age. Maybe I missed it, but it didn't seem like it was covered like maybe it would have in the past.
I think, it's just nuanced, and I think sometimes sometimes the beat reporters don't necessarily, know exactly what they're looking at, and so, I mean, because it's a practice and there's
Right.
context sometimes. And, if you weren't in the meeting previous to the practice, like you may not know what they're specifically working on, or that today's 2 minute or tomorrow's red zone, or, what the context of what they're trying to work on. So I think that's why a lot of times you have to kind of take a lot of these reports with kind of a grain of salt. Marcus and I are big on talking about the drumbeat. This is something that Sigmund Bloom, who's a kind of a podcaster, does fantasy football kind of stuff, but he constantly talks about, when you get these beat writer reports, it's probably never a good idea to invest too heavily in just like one report that one guy saw one time. But what you can kind of count on is when you start hearing the same name repeated over and over again by multiple, sources all at once. And that's something that's been kind of a reliable kind of crowdsourcing indicator that we've started to use in some of these OTAs and mini camp practices, is whose name do we keep hearing over and over again, like by coaches and by their play and that sort of thing. So that's something that we've kind of, like latched onto as a way to sort of see if we can kind of suss out who may be making a move, or who's improved in the off season in a way that we wouldn't normally see. And if I had to put my, drumbeat award winner for this year, I guess, or at least a name that, isn't a starter necessarily, or someone that you're expecting to kind of take a step, I think it's Brevin Spanford, as a tight end. It was an undrafted tight end a couple of years ago out of Minnesota. Big body, 6'7" or 8". Coach said he gained 7 pounds, and he was listed previously at 268 pounds or something like that. So they're basically suggesting, I don't know if he's 7 pounds from that, because that would make him borderline tackle size, which, I'm not mad about. But he's a guy that, big body guy that was a good run blocker, maybe one of the best run blockers on the team last year, who you get just kind of keep hearing his name spoken by folks at these practices and about the off season. So, not something to like necessarily report on, but if you're looking for those kind of, diamonds in the rough kind of situation, I think that you kind of have to take the step back and look at the long view of who are the folks that you just consistently hear their names kind of whispered on the wind, and then start looking those ways.
Yeah, and let's be honest, when you start talking about that, what you're really trying to do is say, well, I know how to put the pieces of this puzzle together. The puzzle was, we're going to run the football better. Well, we're going to run the football better. We better get somebody who can block the edge. If we're going to run the football better, we better get somebody who's a move guy who can get up on the second level. We better get some movement up front. Well, what's the first guy you turn to? Oh, there's Brevin Spanford. And holy cow, he's squatting more. And he's okay. So all of a sudden, I'm taking this piece of that puzzle and I'm trying to insert it into the puzzle to say, well, he's the guy that I'm looking for, because guess what? I think this is what Schottenheimer has said he wants to do, or this is the direction that they want to go, is to be more physical and to be more, more dominant up front. Okay, so that's, what I'm saying? You're kind of putting a story together, trying to piecemeal what you know and what you've seen out there. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that. The thing that I can tell you from having coached that position is, what you really want is a guy who can just go, for lack of a better term, just go break even. Just go get a hat on a hat. Just go put yourself between that defender and where you want it to go. Because I don't know in today's football very many tight ends, maybe if there's any, that are physical enough to go block a good defensive end, to go block a good outside linebacker. Now, if he wants to go a certain direction, maybe I maybe I can get a stalemate there and get him to go a direction. So I don't put a whole lot into anything other than, hey, be physical enough to where you can, have an even draw at times, and then be able to be smart enough to use your leverage and to use your levers in order to stay between the ball carrier and the guy that you're supposed to put a hat on. Because I can tell you right now, I mean, if you think about a normal practice day, how much time do you think Lunda Wells is going to spend with Brevin Spanford teaching him how to block a 7 technique, block a 9 technique, right? They're not spending that much time on that. So what you really want to do is just be smart enough to know that you've got a guy that can, that can get a hat on a hat, and, hey, we can get a draw in this situation.
Yeah, I also think that it's as the position is going to change. Maybe it's not going to change, but as the percentage of the types of blocks that the tight end will be doing will be changing. As I think less maybe zone stuff and more kind of gap man stuff where they're down blocking and trying to get angles on defensive ends. It may be that they're just trying to get a different type of blocker in there in some of those plays as well, too, right? Like they, when they want to get somebody who can kind of run these guys off and shield block a little bit versus not taking a defensive end out. Because you're right that those is it Bavaro is the tight end from the Jets back in the day. It's like those guys. Yeah, Giants. Sorry, Giants. Yeah, it's like those guys don't really exist anymore, right? Like that's not that kind of block, but those are the kind of blocks you're looking for a tight end.
Yeah, guys put more emphasis on the guy who can threaten the middle of the field. They want the guy that can run through the middle of the field at 4.65. They want, some guys like, Mike Gesicki. Okay, Mike Gesicki can run. I got news for you. I'm 62 years old. He couldn't walk in a damn phone booth.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. That's the majority of like you're looking for like that sort of stalemate. But I think that's why someone like Spanford, who I think because he's just a little bit bigger, stronger body. He's not, like I said, not burying any professional 7 techniques on the strong side of an NFL line anymore. But if you give him an angle where he's down blocking a guy, maybe he's going to handle displacing him, horizontally a little bit better than a 245-pound move tight end that mostly they've been putting at their Ys these last few years. So absolutely, like no one's looking back to late 90s kind of fully displacing guys off the balls. It's a lot more about getting an angle, sealing a guy off, and then getting through the hole quickly before a monster breaks through the wall and kills you. So, I think
you get in short yardage goal line situations. Yeah, you want somebody who can come off the football. Absolutely. I want somebody who can come off the football and just get a stalemate for me. But yeah, I want the guy who can come off the ball. I don't want the guy who gets his ass knocked 4 yards in the backfield. Now all of a sudden we got real problems. So you have to have some of that. And I'm sure that's what you want to do. If you're going to run the football, you better be able to block Emil. You know who Emil is?
Yeah,
Jeff Biggs. You can sit there and scratch your butt. That's the end man on the line of scrimmage. You better be able to block him.
That's right. Yeah. And I just to kind of put a finer point to it, I think, as they're going to want to run the ball more, they're going to play more tight ends on the field probably, right? And that doesn't mean like, we're not talking 50% of the time, but we're talking about the time that you probably an increase in the number of times. And when those guys are on the field, you want both of those guys to be efficient. You guys want both of those guys to be able to knock butts off the ball. So, I think it's important to find a couple of those bodies because you'll play a couple of them at once. You may have different ones in a different roles, but you never can have enough quality tight ends, I think, on a football team.
Yeah, and you talk about zone blocking. That's, to me, that is the easier thing where we can get a stalemate. If I can take a guy on the right side and I can take his right foot. We can take a quick 6-inch drop step. I can get his left foot in the ground. And then all of a sudden I can work hand placement. I can work head placement. And all of a sudden, guess what? That guy starts to widen because he said, oh my gosh, we're playing cover 4 here, and I got to set the edge on this defense. Now, if I can just get the stalemate and get him to widen.
A sneaky hold on the backside hand, right?
If I can get that stalemate, then right. You know what? Then we've got a chance to run the ball here. And I don't care what anybody says, it's hard to run the football if you don't have at least 1 or 2 tight ends who can do that.
100%.
All right. Well, good stuff there. Thank you for that insight. And speaking of angles, I have one more Brevin Spanford question I'm going to ask you when we come back. I want to hear from both of you. We'll do that when we return. Also, we want to hear from you via the comment crew. Would love for you to be a part of the show and give your input and your thoughts. We love sharing the show with you, so we'll do that when we come back as well. Great to be with you on this Monday night. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. Well, I don't know about you, but can't wait to have the Mavs back in the NBA Finals with Cooper Flag. That'll be nice down the road. But, there is nothing like the NBA playoffs, right? The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans hosting and the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere that you have to experience live. And this year's matchups are already delivering. If you want in, okay, Game Time makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop closer to tip-off, and with killer last-minute deals, all right? Panoramic seat views and no surprise fees. Game Time is a total game changer. Now, I love one of the things I love about it is that you can see your exact view before you buy. No surprises. Also, if you look on the app, I was just checking it out. They have 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matches. All right. And the app makes it really ridiculously simple. 2 taps and you're done. You'll find great seats for as low as $100 thanks to exclusive discounts. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. Landon McCool, the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. Great to be with you on this Monday night. All right, one other Brevin Spanford question for both of you, and then we'll move on. It was noted that he did spend a little bit of time with the first team offense. Not a lot. He did eventually go back with the 2s and the 3s. But my question is not, hey, does this mean he's going to be the starter? No, but does it at least make it a possibility that maybe this, the tight end room and that starting spot is going to be up for grabs, like we've kind of talked about? Like it really could be an open competition.
Yeah, I think it's more like we've talked about this very topic too on the show. I don't know that there's an open competition for the tight end 1 spot like that. I think what it is that there's an opportunity for those other tight ends to earn more snaps by playing on the field at the same time with Jake Ferguson, or potentially, being in tight end situations in which Ferguson is off the field and they are the only tight end, and just kind of subbing in for him a little bit more. I kind of think that as a pass receiver, Jake Ferguson is very, well regarded by Dak. He's going to look his way. I think that Jake Ferguson is going to figure heavily into this offensive game plan going into the season. So I don't know that it's necessarily a situation where like, oh, that Jake's going to lose snaps like in the that they wouldn't normally give to one of these guys in another situation. I think what it is that they're going to be competing a little bit more with Jalen Tolbert and Lipke, and who's the 11th guy that you're going to put out there on offense? Is it going to be a second tight end? Is it going to be a third wide receiver? Is it going to be a second running back? So I think as the Schottenheimers talked about becoming a more multiple football team, and as they've talked about becoming a more run focused team, you're going to see a multitude of formations. You're not going to live in 11 personnel where you'll only have a ton of three wide receivers, though that will definitely be the predominant formation. But I think you will see an uptick in 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends. You'll see I think maybe potential for an uptick in 13 personnel, which is 3 tight ends, because they like these guys a lot. And then again, there will be times, I think, where maybe you see Schoonmaker out there instead of Fergie or Brevin Spann-Ford out there because they like them for that specific play or for a specific package. So again, I don't think it's that Fergie's going to lose the job by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that they like these guys, and as they can feel more and more comfortable with them, they will get more opportunities separate of Ferguson's opportunities.
Yeah, again, this is the comfort of the quarterback. I mean, he wants to know where that guy is going to be, and I don't think there's any question that the starter, barring some, injury situation. I mean, knock on wood here, where that could happen. But what I do think is that you're going to have multiple formations with multiple personnel groups, and so when defensive coordinators can't dial in on what you have or who you have in the game or how many of those guys you're getting, where you start to develop a pattern week after week after game, that you want to be able to play all of those cards. You want defenses during the week to have to look at you and the defensive coordinator say, son of a buck, who are we going to substitute with in order to match up with X? Who are we going to substitute with in order to match up with Y? And then when they start moving those guys, now all of a sudden, I know you guys hear me say this all the time, it's the last guy with the chalk that wins. I can take on the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. If I get the chalk last, I can run the wishbone and cut his ass like Bordenhouse pie. But that's not always what happens. And so you have to, as an offensive guy, you want to be able to show multiple formations, multiple personnel groups, multiple motions, multiple shifts. Now, all of a sudden, you start creating doubt in the defense's mind. And when you can create doubt, all of a sudden, that's when you have mental mistakes being made. That's when you have guys running wide open. That's when you have a guy miss an assignment or a guy not come down, or all the other things that can happen. So what you want to do as an offensive guy is always maintain control of the chalk. Never let the defensive guy have the chalk. And so that's what you're trying to do. And if you can get smart guys on offense that can understand how to shift, how to move, how to put motions into play, and then how to get to where you get those defenses in a bind, then that's when you're going to be the most lethal. That's why the Chiefs, dislike George Kittle or Taylor Swift or whatever the hell he's doing, at the end of the day, he's a really smart football player. Did I say Kittle? I meant Kelsey.
Yeah, Kelsey.
He's a really
we followed you.
Both good.
Yeah. So is Kittle, though. They're both the same. They're kind of the same guy. But guess what? They move them all over the formations, and Kelsey can get in any place. He can run any route. He can do all of that, and so can Kittle. And that's why you see those guys, when they move those guys around, you're like, God, why are these guys so wide open? And they're so wide open because defenses get in when guys start moving, you start checking the coverage. And if I can create a movement and get you to check a coverage, for instance, you're checking every time to 4, you're checking every time to a weak roll or a strong roll. When we do this, now all of a sudden, guess what? Now I got the chalk back again. Now I can design whatever I want to design. And so those are all the things to me that make those guys so valuable to their team. It's not as if Kelsey is a great blocker. He's a great effort guy. Now he'll throw his body around and he'll give you, and so will Kittle. I mean, they'll give you great, but they're not blowing you off the ball. But what they are doing is they're creating problems in your secondary for how they can run and how they can do certain things. And so that's what makes that guy so valuable. And I'm sure that the Cowboys are questioning to themselves, hey, do we have that guy? Do we have that guy in Spanford? Do we have that guy in Stevens? Stevens is athletic as hell. So
yeah,
let's see if we can create. I don't know how smart he is. I mean, I'm not out there. I don't know how he soaks in information and understands all those different things. But you would think that with him been around the time that he's been around, that he's probably a pretty smart, pretty high football acumen guy. And so, I mean, I go back to when we had Jay Novacek. I mean, Jay was so good at understanding and being really, really smart with how to leverage himself on guys, whether it was in routes, whether he was blocking. People say, well, he wasn't a very good blocker. No, but he always kind of got a stalemate. He always got his body in position. He knew how to get guys to react a certain way, and that's what you want to do.
A lot of different functional body types in the tight end position. I was going to say that's the interesting thing about the position is just a lot of different types of ways to do it. It's a fascinating spot.
Yeah. One of our regulars, DJ Dog 31 says Clayton Adams used bunch wide receiver packages tight to the O-line to unlock the running game, extra tight ends, and also power packages with extra O-linemen. All of these extra O-linemen will compete for those packages. And then he adds that Jaden Blue and Turpin on the field at the same time will be a matchup nightmare for a defense.
Yeah, kind of going to what Coach said too, honestly, is that having all these different types of folks, like, the Turpins all the way up to the Brevin Spanfords as your options to kind of deploy out there as your 11th player on personnel, it just gives you a level of versatility. And like Coach said, it makes the defense have to account for another thing during the week, right? What's our plan for Turpin if Turpin gets the ball? What's our plan for Brevin Spanford if they split him out and we got to cover him with a defensive back or a safety? So it's like it's great to have a wide variety of players, not just across your offense, but just inside the position group, to have a yak guy like Ferguson who can take a short catch and turn it into a big gain. A big bodies like Schoonmaker and Spanford who can give you at least a little something as a blocker, and then turn around and be a big target in the middle of the field. And then, like Coach said, John Stevens Jr., a guy who could be a real red zone threat, right? With his kind of big leaping ability, his wide catch radius, his ability to kind of move at that size. All these guys kind of bring a little bit of something different to the table. All of them useful skill sets that can be deployed against defense. It's something that the defense has to account for, like each one of these guys when they're prepping each week. It just makes their job that much more difficult each week.
Is it maybe a kind of a condensed way to say it is, at the end of the day, you want to be able to impose your will, right? I mean, isn't that what the goal is for the offense?
That's what Coach said. You want the chalk, right? Like you want to be the one who's dictating, right? Like you don't want to be chasing, reacting. That's, you want to force the defense to dictate, to react to what you're doing on offense. So, I think, I think there's been times when they've had an offense that has been about reacting to what the defense is doing to them. And I think the problem with that is at a certain point at the end of the season, you face the better and better defenses, and they're just going to shut that down. Like they'll react to whatever you do. They'll make you play a way that you don't want to play, and then if you don't have a way to force your way out of that, they'll keep you uncomfortable, and then you'll lose because those playoff teams have good offenses themselves, right? Have good quarterbacks who don't have that problem. So that's why I've always thought that this idea of helping Dak get a run game was an important aspect, because sometimes teams are going to commit hardcore to stopping the pass. And if that's the case, you have to have a path to victory late in the season. And if they can't maybe double everyone, but they can rush the passer and make your quarterback a bit difficult. And if you don't have an answer to punish them for that in another way, like in the run game, then you're really giving your quarterback a bad shot at trying to win these games against tougher opponents later in the season.
Yeah, you have to be able to run teams out of playing coverage.
That's right.
If they want to play coverage, you've got to be able to run the football and run them out of playing coverage. And you have to be patient with it. I mean, it's, it takes a lot of times, the run game takes patience, because a lot of people don't want to see that. And that, 4 yards, 3 yards, first down, 5 yards, 2 yards, 4 yards, first down. And everybody, you know what I mean? Everybody's like, it's like watching that. I don't know if you guys ever been to the Smithsonian or not. I mean, it's like watching that pendulum go side to side, and then it swings, then it comes over here.
Well, Coach, can I just say,
down.
It's like the reason you have to be patient is because you have to break the defense's patience, right? Like you have to make them be pulling their hair out because they're so sick of trying to fit the run in a too high shell, and you're getting 4 and 5 yards, and finally the defense coordinator's like, no, I'm dropping the safety down. We're coming into we're going to get into a close look, and then suddenly that's when you hit them over the top, right? Like once
or they're like, Lee. Let's play it again, and maybe they'll hold. Let's play it again, and maybe they'll jump off sides. Let's play it one more time, and maybe they'll make it. Maybe they'll fumble the football. Let's play it one more time. You know what I mean? So that's the game. Is you have to. You talk about imposing your will. It's not like you got to be that much better and go punch the guy in the teeth. In the NFL, everybody can punch. You have to have the patience, and you have to know. Hey, defensive guys will tell you, go ahead. I'll let you have that 12-play drive. Let me see if you can be patient.
Let's see you do it again.
Let's see if you can do it. Let's see if you can sit and call that same 3 or 4 or 5 calls 6 times in a row. I'll see if you can do it, and then I'll wait for you to make a mistake. I'll sit and wait for you to do that. And a lot of people, fantasy football people don't hear that. Hell, they want vertical routes, 4 vertical ghost swaps. They want all that. Well, okay, but if they're playing coverage, you have to make them respect the fact that you can run the football. And if you do that, then you have the best of both worlds.
That's what's beautiful about football. Real quick, that's what's beautiful about football is that cycle of give and take exists in game. And then on a meta level, like over seasons, right? Like as the push and pull of run pass, and the scheme kind of goes in a circular motion, throughout the years too. And it's fun to kind of see where we are in game with that push pull, and then kind of pull back and look at where we are, on a meta level in the NFL in that kind of cycle as well.
Yeah, you want to see 3 singles in a run. I want to see a guy hit it 489 feet. Let me see a guy hits 489 feet.
You and I both. That was a nice little nugget, though. We were not expecting that. That was good. Great stuff, both of you. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to take timeout number 2. When we come back, more of your comments. Stephen White is with us. What's up, Stephen? Glad to have you with us again, along with DJ Dog 31 and everybody else that is watching live. We appreciate it. When we come back, some more takeaways from minicamp I want to run by you guys. We'll do that. And we have some more news and headlines coming up as well. This is going to be a quick timeout. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right, welcome back. I told you.
Very quick.
Cowboys Squad Show. The coach. It was so fast it startled the coach. Glenn Stretch Smith and Landon McCool. Really quick, I was surfing around, and one of the might have been the Cowboys site. One of their takeaways from minicamp was that the running backs are going to be more involved in the passing game. Now we've talked all offseason about how Brian Schottenheimer is going to want to get the running game cranked up, but what does that say to you about the passing game with the running backs?
Well, to me, I felt like this was one of the easiest margins that the Cowboys could improve upon if they really wanted to put some effort into it, right? Is because I just feel like there are a lot of times, especially, we just talked about this, the kind of bend, don't break defense, and the idea of defense's philosophy of trying to make you, march down the field in increments and be perfect in order to kind of continue to sustain long drives and continue to move the chains. A big part of playing against that kind of defense is being able to get to a check down that can create a positive play. And I think, DJ Dog's kind of getting to where I'm getting, right? Is that I think is the appeal of getting a Jaden Blue, right? Is that maybe he is still developing, his instincts a little bit as a runner. I think he is a good runner. I think obviously he's been playing running back. He's not like a late convert or anything. Like, this is a guy that's been playing running back since high school. But I think the thing that he really excels at when compared to other running backs, especially in this class, is as a receiver. And I think when you have that kind of athleticism, that kind of burst, you can convert. He converts himself quickly from receiver to ball carrier. And I think that's a really important aspect of catching a check down is very quickly getting north and south once you have the ball in your hands, right? Not wasting a lot of time. And I think incrementally, by having guys like that who maybe just are slightly better receivers, I'm not necessarily asking them to go out and beat safeties with a Texas route or to, go run a 9 route, though I'm sure we'll see some of those kind of wheel concepts up the sideline, that sort of thing with this guy. I'm not even asking for that. I think that the vast majority of the touches that these guys are going to see in the pass game are going to be a situation where Dak sees, okay, boom, boom, it's not open. I'm trying to get the ball out quick so that my check down can make something happen before the linebackers close down on him. And I think that the improvement in that specific area from a Rico Dowdle to a Jaden Blue or a Miles Sanders potentially, I think that could be that could make a difference in the passing game this season.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say: that the defense will control whether your back's going to get out or not.
Mm-hmm.
They'll control that. Now, if you want to say, well, we think we can win in a hot situation, okay. They'll gamble with you some in that situation. Now the question is, can you hit the hot and can you make them pay? Because they're going to dictate whether your back stays in or not. If you're in a one back set, all they got to do is bring 6.
Mm-hmm.
They bring 6. They can make your back stay in, or you better get ready to throw the football hot. Now you got a quarterback spin out. What? How many times has he been out in the last 5 years? 3 times. We want to protect him. Now all of a sudden we may call the other guy back in to call this a 7-man protection. So I think all of that sounds good, and that's in theory. There's nothing wrong with that. But be smart enough to know they'll dictate where you're going to go with the football. Now, can your guy win versus their guy? That's the question. But as far as saying, well, we're going to concentrate more on winning on the angle route or the Texas route, which is a lot of people call it that because you see the corner of Texas. They want him to run flat and pow. He's back in that hole. That's all great. And I like what Steve Sarkisian did a lot of times with Jaden Blue was he would catch that linebacker on that side. He would catch the linebacker matched up with Jaden Blue. And it's a lot that really what the Rams used to do with Marshall Faulk. If they caught you matching up the linebacker with Marshall Faulk, they would just, it didn't even a wheel. They just blow him out. They used to call it a bullets look. They just blow him out of there up the numbers, and that linebacker can't run with that back. So, yeah, if you can catch them with that mismatch, that's good. But here's the problem. If they send that guy, now you better make sure that either the safety doesn't get over the top and get there before your guy gets there. So sometimes you get to eat the bear, and sometimes the bear eats you.
I'm also interested to see exactly, like, because that is one thing that they changed a lot last year, was they put more responsibility, it seemed, on the running backs in pass protection. And they didn't really specify what exactly that meant, if that just meant more like reads that relied on the running back, or less like defined reads in these protections. But I also wonder if, because we have heard that they talked a little bit about pass protection with the tight ends a little bit more. I'm wondering if we don't see more situations where maybe they do leave a tight end in as for pass protection situations more often than they did before. Because I do think that they, passing out of 12 personnel, like, even for the stat nerds, like, I'll tell you right now, like, they'll tell you that on an EPA per play basis, that like throwing the ball out of run formations, out of traditional run formations, and passing the ball out of traditional running the ball out of potential pass formations usually are the better, kind of more efficient way of doing it. So I wonder if they don't do more situations where they show you with 12 personnel, they got 2 tight ends in there, and maybe one of them is staying into protection with the running back, or one of them. You talked about 7-man protections, right? Maybe that's how they're doing it, is they've got 2 tight ends out. They're still sending one of them out in pass routes, and then they're using a running back and a tight end, right? So I do think that as we start to see more bodies in the field that are not wide receivers, I guess is the way to say it, how are they going to solve some of these pass protection issues they may have, especially with, look, they're going to have Guyton out there, right? And it's pretty clear that they're leaning into Guyton being the starter at left tackle. How he is developing and the kind of curve of his development will likely dictate, the kind of protections that they're going to end up using with Dak Prescott, right? Because, gone are the days where it's Tyron Smith and you feel like a 5-man protection is not going to be a problem because you can isolate those guys completely on the edge. I think they're going to want to give these guys a little bit more protection until they can feel completely comfortable about doing that on a more regular basis.
Yeah, and when you put more guys in, if you go to 12 personnel and you put more guys in, guess what the defense does? They put more guys in.
More guys in.
Now, is your guard smart enough? Is Booker smart enough? Is he quick enough to read it? If he's uncovered, he may have to dual read it.
That's right.
In order for it not to be a hot situation. He may have to read the mic to the same. Now, we're getting into all this X's and O's conversation, but at the end of the day, you bring more in, the box gets more crowded. Now, all of a sudden, you better be very, very sharp with any kind of TE games, any kind of twist, any kind of anything. You got to be really good. So you see what I'm saying? It's what are you comfortable with? And then what is the quarterback comfortable with? Because, I agree with you. If you can keep a tight end in and you can keep a back in and we can run a 7-man protection, guess what? I want and we can protect it up here. Boy, now all of a sudden I get the football down the field to Lamb or Pickens. Now
that's what I was just going to say.
Just piss on checking the ball down. I don't care about worried about getting the back out. Now, if we can get a hat on a hat in here and I get this football down the field to one of my big guys, now I have got a chance, to hit the home run. And that's the whole game within the game, where guys are, trying to give yourself a chance to, in a sense, in baseball terms, get the 2-1 fastball. Now I know I can take a rip at this thing.
That's the part about the Pickens deal that I don't feel like gets talked about enough, is that it makes 6- and 7-man protections a lot more viable, right? Because you have 2 guys on the outside that are deadly and can beat man coverage on their own. And when you don't have to worry about putting an extra guy out into coverage in order to beat the defense, when you feel like you can beat the defense on the back end with two guys on the outside, it opens up so much in your playbook in the way that you can protect your aging quarterback and making sure that he's comfortable in the pocket. And then now he's got time in the pocket to wait on the situations, wait for Pickens to get down the field, wait for CD to get open in the space created by Pickens, gravity getting down the field. And that's how you can really, and that's what, again, that points to the kind of thing I was just talking about, the higher EPA per play on those kind of run formations, because you can do different things. And if you have the right personnel to run that, it's just a different way of punishing defenses.
Well, and why does Miami, who has Tyreek ran a 10.15 at a California track meet, and you can say that is fast. I mean, he plays football that fast, and you're like, well, yeah, but he's not a world class. No, he's not a world class sprinter. But I mean, can you imagine? That's what made Kansas City so difficult, was they could run a 7-man protection and run Tyreek Hill from the left side of the field all the way across the field because he had time, and there's nobody to cover him. You can't cover that guy. And then you flip to the other
Kelsey,
side.
Yeah.
You flip to the other side, and if defensively you can have that shutdown corner, if you can have. That's why those guys are so hard. They're white buffalo. That's why they're so hard to find. But if you've got one of those guys, now, you got Deion Sanders. Now you have a chance of doing some things defensively. So that's why it's all, we look at this and you say, all of that's great. And all of those plays will work if you can protect the quarterback and if you can give him enough time to get to that guy. But it doesn't happen very often, and all you have to have is one misstep, one miscommunication, one missed block, one slip in bad weather, and then it's, look out, here he comes.
All right.
100%.
Good stuff.
Jeff, I'm going to need your address after this. I'm going to send you my invoice for this coaching clinic I'm doing.
Thank you.
The cool clinic that you put on.
Exactly. I'm loving it. Thank you. All right. We're going to take our final timeout. Final segment coming up. Some final takeaways. And you mentioned the rookie Tyler Booker. Wanted to run something by you about him as well. That's coming up. Final segment. Great to be with you. The show is flying by, and that's a good thing. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. We are back. The Cowboy Squad Show. That is Landon McCool along with the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. Happy to be with you guys on this Monday. Some of the other takeaways from minicamp, we've already kind of hit on it, but the Dak Kittle connection I thought was noteworthy. It seemed to get a lot of buzz. We'll see, but so far so good.
Dak Ferguson?
Huh?
Are you saying the Dak Ferguson commercial?
No, Dak and Pickens. What did it say?
Pickens. Pickens. Okay.
Forgive me. I don't know why I said Kittle.
We're all getting Kittle. We're all got Kelsey on
Kittle.
The brain today. That's what it is.
Forgive me. My
Kittle,
bad.
I mean,
Yes. Pickens. Dak Pickens connection. Brian Schottenheimer's culture, which Coach brought up earlier. The Micah Parsons appearance, just him being there. I think even though we talked about that. Khair Elam, who you talked about. We talked about the running back
guy. Like, look, that's a guy. Like again, we're talking about like hearing his name every single open practice that the Cowboys media was at. Elam had at least a pass deflection, if not an interception. So again, does that mean he's going to the Pro Bowl? No, but I mean. You don't ignore that. Like you store it away in the back of your head thinking, okay, maybe there's something there, that maybe they found something here with the former first round pick, just wasn't in a good situation. And again, shorts and helmets at the best is what they're wearing right now. But you still got to be in the right spot to make those kind of plays, right? And so that's not nothing. So at least it's a first step to maybe something. And that's kind of what you look for.
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Sam Darnold. I thought Sam Darnold, of course, I saw him when he was a kid in high school, and I followed him at SC. And, he was in a bad situation with the Jets. He was in a worse situation in Carolina. Comes back and wins a bunch of games. I feel the same way about Daniel Jones. I'm going to tell you, better watch out in Indianapolis for Daniel Jones. He needed a change of scenery. I mean, played for a coach in David Cutcliffe who can flat coach quarterbacks. He's smart. He can run. He needed away from that. And guys, it happens all the time with guys. Does it happen as often as maybe we want it to? No. But I do think guys can get a change of scenery and can get, to hear a different voice. And I mean, I heard you guys talking about parenting. I got news for you. They get to about 16 or 17, they are tired of hearing from your arse. They want to hear somebody else. And so, it's just like when guys move and are able to hear something else, they get re-energized, something else clicks with them. They hear something a certain way. They hear something, maybe a way that it's said or a way that it's communicated to them. And I mean, that can happen. So most time guys don't give up on first round picks that quickly, but hey, I'm telling you, it's not that strange to see a guy get a change of scenery and have, a shot in the arm.
Well, it's also, not unusual for an NFL cornerback to have a down season and then turn around and have a great season. Like it's such a high-low position, that and you have to have like a short memory with some of that stuff. And I think for Elam, that's the thing we kind of all forget is that, for the Cowboys fans, it's like they view this as like just a scrub that Buffalo didn't want. I mean, this is a guy who started a ton of games, a ton of big time playoff games, like he has a lot of experience. I think the lasting memory that we all have is the last memory we have of him, which was him getting absolutely shredded by maybe the greatest quarterback in the history of the game. So, maybe we need to kind of step back and give this guy an opportunity to show who he is a little bit, not necessarily with the baggage that he carried with him from Buffalo, an opportunity for a fresh start. I think if he was going to take advantage of that situation, it would look like exactly what we've heard it looks like so far in the reports on him coming out of OTAs and minicamp.
All right. And lastly, we got a couple minutes left. Tyler Booker came out and said that, hey, he's not going to hold back the Cowboys offense. He's going to be, you guys were just talking about that coach who brought it up. I mean, the fact that he's saying that, I like that.
Yeah, I like that he's saying that. Just like I like that you read Pro Football Talk. That's a good thing. You kind of get your little bit right there. Yeah. I mean, I do. I like that he has.
I used to be a part of that show. So yeah,
that's right. He has a little. He's saying, hey, he's saying the right things. Again, I can tell you, and because I've done it, if we could go out here to Texas Motor Speedway and I can show you in a Z71 truck exactly the line to take. And boy, you can get that Z71 truck going maybe 100 miles an hour, 110 miles an hour. And boy, you can take the right line and everything sounds good. Now go over there and get in that Formula One race car and take that same line and tell me how it goes. Now all of a sudden it's a different animal. And so there is it takes a little time to get the speed of the game. And that I anticipate some quick, it's going to take him some time. I'm giving him patience. It's the other guys that I don't have a lot of patience with. And it's those guys that got to help him to read and recognize what's going on. Do I think he'll hold back? I think he's saying the right thing until he gets behind the wheel of that Formula One race car, and all of a sudden that line he took in that Z71 truck spins him out in a Formula One car. It's just a different animal.
Yeah, I think this is a situation where I don't know that you would find a guy who has been better prepared to get into the NFL. He went to IMG Academy, went to Alabama, right? But he's still ultimately at the end of the day a rookie, right? And this is still a different game. So, yeah, I have the utmost confidence that on the scale of rookies, like of how quickly he's going to get up to speed, that I think he will get to that level. But at the end of the day, he is still a rookie, so the expectation needs to be tempered by the fact that his head is going to be spinning by the time September runs around. If he's going to have earned that spot, and he's going to be getting ready for his first game to start in the NFL, and he is just going to be holding his breath that he doesn't screw up and do the wrong technique or miss a call or forget to check with the center on something. I mean, it's just going to be a lot. And then on top of that, it's a really long season. It's especially for these kids that have just come out of college football, even if you go in and you've had a long playoff season, which, Alabama didn't necessarily have one last year. It's a long season, and it's physically tiring, obviously. And he's a big, strong guy. I'm sure that'll be tiring for him still, but it's mentally tiring as well. It's mentally exhausting. So, I think he is about as prepared as you can be because of where he's come from, because he's been preparing to be a professional NFL player essentially since he was 14 years old, it seems like. But being prepared and thinking you're prepared and being prepared are two different things, and he's going to learn what the difference is pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, think about if you hear the play, okay, you know what the pass protection is. Okay, there's a guy on you. And okay, he's outside eye of you. And okay, we're running a 5-step drop here. Okay, man, I gotta block this guy. He's my guy. I got him. Boom, the ball snapped. He takes off, and you chase him 2 steps. Here comes the defensive end wrapping back around. And I took 2 steps chasing the guy. I knew I had to block that guy. And here comes the guy inside. It just takes a little time to see it, react, and understand the speed of all of that.
All right. Well, I don't know what the speed was, but this show tonight flew by really, really quick. So I enjoyed that very much. I mean, that's always a good sign to me. When it goes by quick, that means it's good. And I was fortunate enough, blessed to drive. I got to drive a NASCAR once for about 15 laps. And to your point, Coach, I got to 164 on the straightaway. And the weirdest thing is that you're going at that speed, and everything in your mind tells you there's no way you can take a turn at that speed, but you can. But you just have to get used to it. But it's very weird. Crazy. It was fun. I loved it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I'm sure that is a totally. I mean, it is. It is a totally different animal, and the speed of the game. I mean, you guys have heard me talk about it. It's just different, and I can sit here and tell you all about it, and tell you and show you, but until you're there, you don't know.
Amen. All right. Well, one thing I do know, we are going to be back with you on Thursday. Landon, you and Marcus are going to be busy all week. No days off, as Bill Belichick would say, right?
Nope. We'll be with you Monday through Friday, so make sure you guys come check us out.
All right. Well, enjoyed this very much. Look forward to that. Again, that's Landon McCool and Marcus Mosier on the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast. Marcus will be with the coach and I on Thursday. Until then, have a great rest of the week. Again, training camp is going to be here before we know it, but great to be with you on these shows, and we'll do it again on Thursday. For Landon McCool and the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith, thank you for being with us tonight. We'll do it again Thursday. This has been the Cowboys Squad Show.